Alien Isolation. Anyone that knows me well enough will know that I should have reviewed this game a long while ago. There are few things on this earth that I love more than the Alien movies, so as you can imagine, a game like this was like Christmas come early to me. In the run-up to its release, I was mixed with feelings of excitement and caution, because I've kind of been taught to not get too excited for new things Alien or aliens related. Yeah, I don't want to talk about that. I can't go back to those times. But man, I don't know, this one seemed different. Aliens Colonial Marines looked good, but Alien Isolation, it just... there was something about it that just had that extra layer of passion and care to it, enough to make me think maybe this one is actually worth getting excited about. So despite being incredibly bitter and burnt out by everything that happened with Colonial Marines, I refused to learn my lesson and I completely bought into the hype for the next Alien game just around the corner. And almost 2 years later, I feel like I'm about ready to talk about it. Is Alien Isolation the game that I've been waiting for? Is it the game that is the franchise that is the good, the thing? Only one way to find out. Let's answer the age-old question that I just said. Let's bloody... Alien Isolation takes place between Alien and Aliens and centers around Amanda Ripley searching for her mother that mysteriously disappeared along with the along with the USCSS Nostromo. And if you don't know what that is, then get out, because this game isn't for you, and I'm actually... not entirely joking there, I'll get onto that in a bit. It is one of those stories that does sound a bit contrived at first, because it's like, oh, what are the odds that it's another Ripley fighting off more xenomorphs? What, is the Ripley family tree just cursed with alien-related bad luck or something? But I mean, looking at it, it does seem natural that Ellen Ripley's daughter, who is confirmed to be canon in a deleted scene in Aliens, by the way, little bit of trivia for you there that you probably already knew, it only seems natural that she'd be a little bit curious as to whether there's more to the story, because it is kinda fishy What follows is a pretty good story about Amanda's desperate survival on the space station Sevastopol. I will say though that the story is pretty similar to the film. I won't say that it copies it beat for beat, but it is pretty predictable if you've seen the movie, but I'll get onto that a little bit later. Like I said before, Sevastopol Station isn't really a safe place, and that isn't just because there's a giant bloody alien walking around. Throughout the game, you'll also run into other survivors, people who, like Amanda, are just trying to find their way off of the ship and away from, the giant bloody alien. And it's up to you to deduce whether they'll be okay with seeing you or whether they'll just kill you immediately. You do this by eavesdropping on their conversation and deducing which ballpark they fall into. Saying that though, you can't always assume human nature, or at the very least, AI human nature. There was one point in the game where I saved a bunch of survivors from a xenomorph attack and they showed their gratitude by immediately shooting me to death. So when I next respawn, I just let the xenomorph kill him. Yeah, there you go, nice one. You could have avoided that, you bloody idiot. Another threat on board the station are the Working Joes, general maintenance androids that have malfunctioned and gone rogue, and decided maybe to just kill everyone they see instead. These guys are actually really creepy. They remind me a lot of Michael Myers from Halloween. Their vacant expressions, their dead eyes, the way they walk after you as though they know they'll catch up eventually. I don't know, just they're creepy. I don't like them. Stay away from me, Working Joe, man. And of course the xenomorph itself, the main thing that makes this game as interesting as it is. I really like how they went about translating the xenomorph into the context of a survival horror video game, because not only does it work perfectly, but it functions in ways that I've never seen a game do before. For one, it's unpredictable. You never know what it's gonna do. In games like Outlast, you see the enemies following a set track that they never deviate from, and instantly there's no horror because you know where they're gonna go and you know what to do. It's all about waiting for the right time. In Alien Isolation, if anything, waiting just gets you killed. In Alien Isolation, the alien wanders around and goes wherever it wants. And this can, and often does, go both ways. On one hand, it's really cool because it gives the game replayability and keeps it scary. Makes it feel like a legitimate game of cat and mouse, like he's actually trying to hunt you down. But at the same time, when you design an AI in your game with no set track or design or anything, it does get pretty unfair at times. Oftentimes the xenomorph has gone from being terrifying to me to just plain annoying, because it just ends up being in the worst places at the worst times and there's nothing you can do. Sometimes he'll drop right down in front of you, he'll be right there as you turn a corner, he'll grab you while you're interacting with a quick time event thing, he'll be glitching through the floor, I suppose, and then he'll appear right behind you as if he wasn't there. I don't I can't even really say that it's down to how smart you play the game, more like it's just down to bloody pot luck sometimes. Another thing I really loved is how the xenomorph adapts to your playstyle. If you hide under desks and tables too long, he'll start to look there. Use the flamethrower on him too much, he'll go from being scared of it to just being annoyed by it. Hide in vents too long, he'll either go looking in there or he'll hide, waiting for you to appear. This means that you can't rely on one tactic for too long. Telegraph your tactics too much, and he'll soon be one step ahead, which is incredibly cool to me. It makes the xenomorph feel less like a programmed AI in a video game and more like an actual creature, something with a train of thought who's trying to one-up you just as you're trying to one-up him. It's a battle of wits, it's so cool. This also affects how you think about combat in general. On one hand, sure, getting out your revolver and sorting out every survivor you come across is a good idea, but at the same time, even if the xenomorph is nowhere to be seen, getting out your revolver and firing away might catch his attention and he'll come to investigate to see who that is. Never in a game have I had to think about how an AI might respond to things even if they're not around. This creates a really interesting dynamic. Is it better to sneak around a bunch of survivors, or get the alien's attention, get him to kill them all, and then sneak around the alien? It's something I've never seen a game do before, and I love it. It's so cool. I know I keep saying it's so cool, but there's a reason for that. It's because I think it's so cool. As long as you accept that every now and again the alien will mess you up and screw you over in ways that you can't possibly see coming, then you know, you might find it cool too, maybe. This is only made even more difficult by the way the game treats saving your progress. You can only save the game at these designated save stations, meaning you can sometimes lose up to an hour of playtime if you're not too careful. This gives the game an almost Dark Souls-y Bloodborne feeling. When playing Alien Isolation, I see every save station just like Bloodborne's lanterns. The farther you venture out and the more you explore to look for cool little trinkets, the farther away you get from the nearest safe haven, and if you're killed before you get back, you've lost it all. Death really matters in this game, and sometimes you have to juggle between making progress and exploration. I really like the way that the game forces you into that risk-reward mindset, even if sometimes, unlike Bloodborne, the game can get pretty cheap. And once again, I'll get onto that in a little bit. You know what? I'm gonna come out and say it. I love Alien Isolation. I consider it to be a pretty underrated game. In fact, I go so far as to say that I put it on the same level as BioShock. Actually, in many ways, the game does take a lot of lessons from BioShock. Sevastopol Station feels like just as much of a city as Rapture does. They both feel very claustrophobic, very isolated, well, surprise, surprise. And the way you find new items throughout the game, backtrack to previous areas, find and collect audio logs, and start to follow these little sub-stories within them. It sets the tone and time period with blood-stained walls of graffiti and vintage-looking posters and advertisements that look authentic but also weirdly creepy. I ran out of breath there. I mean, sure, you don't feel nearly as vulnerable in BioShock, and maybe it'd be weird to equate the working Joes to Big Daddies, so I can't make comparisons everywhere, but I absolutely got the same satisfaction out of the story and the world and the weapons and everything else as I did with BioShock. But saying that, it upsets me to say that Alien Isolation does have quite a few glaring problems. One of them being the third act of the game. For a long while, I didn't really understand the idea of people saying that a game can be too long, because it's like, if you don't like it, then stop playing it then, you silly Billy. But yeah, this game is way too long, and I don't mean that in the sense that the gameplay gets repetitive, although that is a common complaint. I never really got tired of the gameplay. The story drags on. It easily could end way before it does. There was like 4 or 5 times when I was so sure that the game was about to end, and then it just kept on going, and it kept throwing a lot of boring stuff at me, and it just kept moving the story along at a snail's pace. To a certain extent, I did get what the game was going for, because the Alien movies do have a common trend of being like, oh yay, we're finally safe. No, we're not. Yay, we're finally free. No, we're not. So I get it. I get it was doing that, but it got a bit obnoxious when it was like, okay, it just did it again. Like, yet again. How many more times is it gonna do this? The way I look at it, Alien Isolation is long in the same way that Tarantino movies are long. Doesn't mean I don't love it regardless, but it's like, yeah, you could have trimmed it down a bit, come on. Another gripe I had is with another threat in this game that doesn't pop up too often, but man oh man when it does. The facehuggers are so incredibly cheap and annoying in this game. Oftentimes you never see them coming. They're usually in in an area that you don't expect them to be, barely gives you any time at all to respond, and whoops, you're dead. In a game all about unexpected encounters, these scripted attacks leave me having to memorize where they are in a trial and error kind of way. Like, okay, there's one facehugger here, then I run down and there's not just one, but there's two facehuggers here, so be aware of that. Like, I have to commit it to memory so I don't die, which is so against everything else this game does. I also hate the way this game ends. Of course, I'm not going to give anything away, but to say that one of the running themes in this game is closure, this game sure doesn't have any, instead opting for a cliffhanger, sequel-baity ending. A sequel that, by the looks of it, we probably won't be getting. There's a certain hint of smug arrogance about ending your game like that, almost as if to say, yeah, we'll get a sequel, no worries, we'll just carry on the story in the next game that we're definitely gonna be making. Yeah, ain't that right, The Order 1886? Remember when you did that? Where's the Order sequel? You know, you ended your game all, you know, cliffhanger. Where's the... Oh, right. Well, maybe you shouldn't have ended the game that way then. So that's just the ending to the franchise. We're never gonna get any... Oh, right. Maybe you shouldn't have done that then. That might have been a bad idea. Come to think of it. I didn't mean to go on about The Order that long, but my point is, hopefully Alien Isolation doesn't end up the same way. Come on, I need my closure.
Maybe there'll be some closure for you.
Exactly! Where's my closure? Come on, man! Did these things ruin the game? No, not really, but I can't pretend that the final third of the game doesn't flop a little bit. Overall, Alien Isolation is a fantastic tribute to one of the greatest movies ever made. It's so incredibly surreal to see a AAA developer attempt something so niche as this without watering it down and have it work so well. They could have chickened out at any point and made it too easy for a bigger audience, give you more weapons because the kids like shooters nowadays, but they didn't do any of that. Alien Isolation is an incredibly faithful game that pays so much love to its source material, so much so that you can tell by playing it that this game was made by people who just wanted to see this game be made. They were making their own dream project. Aliens Colonial Marines took, like, what, over a decade to be what it is now, and it took a developer that's only ever made sports games and the Total War franchise to make this? But because the game is so geared towards die-hard fans of the film, I kinda do feel like it's a game exclusively for die-hard fans of the film. When getting to this section of the game, a fan of the film would lose their mind, whereas anyone else would probably just be bored. This part of the game is completely pointless. It's literally only there for people like me to be like, oh my god, I don't believe it! So I personally don't care that it goes on for 30,000 hours, whereas anyone else would be like, okay, alright, get a move on already. Seeing a room like this or a corridor like this would make an Alien fan think, this is incredible, I feel like I'm a part of the movie, this is what I wanted, I am in love with this. Anyone else wouldn't really think twice. Some of the music in this game honestly gives me goosebumps because it reminds me of the movie. I'm not sure if it'd have that effect if you didn't love the film. The game can be annoying, the story can be boring and slow, the characters can be badly acted and obnoxious, but for people like me, feeling like I actually exist in a masterfully crafted recreation of the movie is more than enough to keep me playing. If you don't love the first movie, you might not have that extra element that'll keep you coming back, which makes it kinda hard to recommend. What I'm trying to say is that Alien Isolation tries so hard to impress me and give me what I want that it... oh my god. It alienates and isolates everyone else. Ugh.